So welcome back to a very different kind of video today. I will not be needing this. Instead of riding my bike, I'm going to talk about my bike. Around a year ago, I was lucky enough to become the owner of a YT Capra. I have the 2019 AL Comp with 27.5 wheels. I thought today I would do a bit of a one-year review type thing. I'm not going to talk about parts or spec because YT changes that sort of thing every year, but instead just go over how I feel the bike performs. If you want any specific questions answered, just put them in the comments or find our Instagram and we'll get back to you and possibly even do a follow-up video to this one. Alright, to get started, I'm going to go with how it performs on the downhills because this is probably what most of you are actually going to care about. Overall, I found it was incredibly capable on the descents, and I know I'm not a super skilled rider, but personally I haven't found anything that really pushes the limits of the bike apart from, bottoming out my poorly set up suspension every now and then. So I found that technical downhill is where the bike really seems to shine. This was evident before we even had it out on the trails. Just lifting up the rear wheel and dropping it down to the ground, it just sticks, it doesn't bounce at all. Then out on the trail it's the exact same, just sticking really nicely over the ground, over the roots and rocks. I found this to be particularly good for my line choice. I'm taking some slightly riskier lines now and I have confidence that the bike's going to grip really well. So jumps obviously is where this ability to stick to the ground can become a bit of a problem. So it still feels amazing, stable and playful on the bigger jumps, but I've just found it's on the smaller and steeper jumps in particular where it can start to feel like a bit sluggish and slow to respond. The bike can jump well, but it's not just going to do it for you. If you're someone who always is riding the jumps and flow trails, I'd say this might not be the bike for you. But if you're like me, you ride all sorts of different trails, snowy trails in winter, dusty park riding in summer, then honestly the Capra is just perfect. If you're into park riding, but you still love a good pedal every now and then, I'll definitely consider getting this bike. The Capra feels like a mini downhill bike when it needs to, and in fact it does share a lot of similarities in frame design with YT's DH bike. On the other hand, if you're a non-stop laps on the lifts sort of rider, you'd probably feel like you're pushing the limits of what the Capra was designed to do. Okay, now let's talk about the uphills. This is probably where I'm going to be a little bit tough on the Capra, but just bear in mind that even though I do a lot of uphill riding, I don't particularly enjoy it. So my very first uphill impression of this bike was not a good one. It felt like I was dragging weights up the hill, with my brakes fully on the whole time. And I later figured out that this was because I did have some serious brake rub going on. I've learned not to build my bike up at 11:30 at night next time. After we got that sorted out, it's much better on the climbs. I don't have many complaints and, it gets the job done. YT states that the Capra climbs like a goat. I would say this isn't entirely true unless it's a very tired goat. But in reality, it climbs just how I'd expect an alloy bike with 170mm of travel to climb, which is, gets up most things but requiring effort. I do find myself pushing up a lot more with the Capra than I used to with other bikes, but I've recently had a stress fracture from running and I've taken a way more chilled approach to my riding. On to flat trails and roads. This is where the Capra can start to feel a bit uninspiring. It sometimes feels like if you stop pedaling on the road, it's just going to grind to a halt straight away. But I have to say that the only time I would be on the road is heading home after a long ride, so that's probably quite an unfair statement to make. For flatter trails, you can still have a real good time on the bike, but you just have to do a little more work to get it moving. I've done a few trail rides and cross-country loops on it and, had a great time. But if you ride that sort of terrain often, I wouldn't really recommend the Capra. The capability it has to stick to the ground on techie lines can make life a bit harder if you're trying to flick it around on some of the flatter trails. I don't really ride a lot of this sort of terrain, so if you want any specific questions answered about how the Capra performs with this kind of riding, just comment them below and I'll do my best to answer them. And speaking of questions, as I said at the beginning, if there's anything you want to know, just leave a question in the comments or find our Insta. And let me know if you want a follow-up video answering some of those questions in detail. Hope you're all safe and well. See you next time.